Seeking FM, inspirasi utama anda. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to our dear listeners of Seeking FM. Welcome to Seeking Sakinah. I'm your host Patricia Afrina. Alhamdulillah, thank you very much for listening to us from wherever you are. Either you are listening to this through radio or even through our social media pages, Facebook and YouTube. And of course, in this episode, in this conversation of Seeking Sakinah, we talk a lot about love, marriage, and also relationship. And of course, I have an expert who should be talking, deserve to talk about it. I have here with me is Brother Edris Khamissa. Assalamualaikum, Brother Edris.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah, it is such a pleasure to have you back in our studio for today, Brother Edris. How are you?
I'm very well. It's a pleasure to come here. I like the warmth. I like the ambience here. And as I said, our earnest prayer is that people embrace what we are saying. We embrace it ourselves. And inshallah, that will transform their homes. It will make the home a sanctuary, inshallah.
Inshallah. Right. So, Brother Edris, for the past few episodes, right, we have talked about relationships. Specifically, we talk about the communication, how to build trust, and also intimacy. So, for today's episode, I really like it because it offers something different. And in here, it's about what men and women want. And of course, there is the basis of communication, right? Which is to understand what our spouse are trying to convey. So in terms of talking about understanding, generally there must be an understanding about the gender perspective that typically men and women have. So as a starting for today's conversation, are there actually difference in the way how men and women convey or communicate?
Yes, this is a very important thing that I'm going to say in my preamble. Whilst there are some distinct things that women want, there are distinct things that men want. And the irony is, what women want is also what men want. Now, the only difference is this, that one cannot generalize. Someone might be listening to this program and say, yeah, women want the following. But every person is unique.
Yes.
So the precondition is you must try to understand what they want, what they need. And I remember someone shared this with me. I think it was Yasmin Mujahid,
Yasmin Mujahid.
Yeah. So she said that she learned, or it was from her understanding, which I accept. She says that if someone came to you 5 minutes before they got married and they asked you, him and his wife to be, give us advice. And she said this, and I found it quite compelling. She said to the man, you treat your wife as if she is the queen. Be loving to her, be affectionate to her, and demonstrate your love for her. Make her the centerpiece, as it were. And said to the woman, if you want your man to love you, respect him. Respect him and respect his family and love his family. If you can do that, and I've seen this. It's not based on any empirical evidence, it is anecdotal, but I've seen it in my own life. I feel so great when I'm not around. May Allah grant both my parents Jannatul Firdaus, and when they used to visit sometimes in my absence, and they used to tell me, Idris, man, your beloved wife Ruxana has been so wonderful to us,
MashaAllah.
So warm and hospitable, then I want to die for her. You know what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
So I think that is an important consideration. But we can delineate maybe 5 or 6 things that women want and 5 or 6 things that men want, and we could talk about each one of them.
So there are quite these things actually. So can you explain more on that?
Yeah. You see, women, they like an emotional connection.
Emotional.
They like to be emotionally connected with their husbands. They love emotional intimacy. They want that. They would like, besides this emotional connection, it also can come also through communication, how you communicate, communicating with love. And also, I think this is a fundamental thing. Men are somewhat mechanistic, right? Men are action-driven.
Action-driven.
Yeah. Like a woman loves it when her husband, when she's sharing a story, when the man is listening without interrupting. Now, men often, they think, where is she going with the story, man? What's the theme? What's the plot? And we think erroneously the woman wants answers. No. For her, it is romantic that when my husband came home and I shared with him how I spent my day, and he listened in a not judgmental way. So I think that's a key point, right?
They just want to be listened to.
Sorry, yes, correct.
And more centered into affection. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other critical aspect is that they want to be appreciated. And, and I think it's important and respected. For example, and I also remember this, when my wife used to ask me, she wears an outfit, tells me, darling, how's my outfit?
Asking for compliment.
No, yeah. So I should just say Alhamdulillah, finish Alhamdulillah, But now I learned. I say Alhamdulillah, it looks so nice on you. You look so cute in it.
Mashallah.
So that she feels good about it, right?
Yeah.
And the issue about respected also is important. That you give your wife, you give to her dignity.
Yes.
And you treat her, you don't treat her shabbily or condescendingly, right?
Yeah.
The other important thing is this, that you give your wife support.
Yeah.
And this is a very important aspect. I'm reminded of these three circles.
Three circles.
The one circle is, you have a circle with the diameter in the center. And then you have the man on top, the woman at the bottom.
Okay.
Now that's more the chauvinistic perspective of marriage. I'm in charge. And you woman, you are below me. So the feminist movement was very upset about it. So they said, no, in this circle we are in charge, the man is at the bottom. Some of them said that, indicated that.
Yeah.
Right. But the Islamic perspective is such a beautiful one. You have the same circle with the diameter coming north and south. The man on one side, the woman on the other side. But more than that, there is an axis. The axis indicates when the woman is under pressure, the man supports her. And when the man is under pressure, the woman supports her.
MashaAllah.
I remember a friend of mine, Maulana Muqaddam, showed us these three circles. May Allah bless him for that. I thought it is so illustrative, so clear, so beautiful, right? So I think that's very, very important. And the other aspect is a woman like clear and open communication. That's important. Right? And they want to be heard.
Exactly.
They want to be understood. And they want, there mustn't be any ambiguity. The man must really understand what she is saying, right? And he must make an effort. The other aspect for a woman, which for me is very, very fundamental, especially, is about trust and loyalty.
Trust and loyalty.
That is so fundamental, a woman, they value trust.
Exactly.
They value loyalty.
Yes.
And the loyalty suggests a unflinching commitment to that marriage. You are making a promise that I'm here with you, until death do us part and beyond. I mean, marriage is such an institution, it goes beyond life itself. And what it does, it gives them a sense of security. And what it does, they feel protected. And what it also does, this gives them some degree of stability. These are some aspects that women want, right?
So it's emotional stability.
Correct, yes. It's emotional. It's also security. It's about feeling protected, feeling warm and secure. And I know this, for example, I'll give you two incidents related to me and my wife. Sometimes I might have to do a fair amount of counseling in the day. And what really happens is that when I finish the counseling, at the end of the day, I really feel, in a sense, burnt out,
Tired.
You're tired, tired. And in fact, more than that, what I feel mentally and emotionally exhausted.
I see.
Right? And it can be quite draining because you are really listening to people's problems, right? The challenges. And so when I come home, I just tell my wife, darling, today it was a tough day. Now, I do not want advice from her. Nothing. So she would hold me, and I feel protected. And it's so cathartic. You know what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
And I really feel warm. I feel cozy. And, I feel good, right? Now, similarly, for example, my wife is looking after her mother who was 98 years old. Now, people from the outside will never understand what it is to look after someone that age who is going through those problems. And you find that people, yes, they're able to sympathize with her, but there is no empathy. Yeah, they don't know what she goes through. And women would prefer empathy than sympathy.
Yeah.
So I'm able to empathize with her, and that makes a very, very big difference, right? Now, so let us also, when you're ready, we can talk about what men want. Can't leave our men out, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be a war. Don't worry, my brothers, I also love you, my brothers. Right?
There'll be balance here.
Yeah. So men also, as I said in the beginning, they want respect. They want respect because they regard themselves as the Amir of the home. And they do not want the woman, the wife, to undermine that authority.
Means that they prefer to lead.
Correct, yes, they prefer to lead, right? Not all. Some men, because of their own insecurities, they would prefer the wife to lead if she is more in control, more assertive. I got no issue with that. I got no issue with that.
So it's not a problem.
Yeah, no issue. As long as you do not feel emasculated and all of those things, right? You don't feel you're losing your manhood by relinquishing your authority to the wife.
Means that as long as they are not being challenged.
Correct. Yes. So that is very, very important. And also, men also like to be recognized. Because often what happens, lots of men say, I know I do all of this. I work so hard. I bring food to the table. I clothe my family. I'm looking at the homes have changed now anyway. And he says, but my wife never thanks me. Does not recognize what I'm doing.
Being appreciated.
Yeah, so I think recognition is important. And especially also in the public space.
Means that they want their wife to talk about them, you mean?
Yes, they, in a sense, depending, every man is different. Like when they're chatting, when they can say, you know what, Alhamdulillah, I'm so happy I married Idris, for example, and he's so supportive of me.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and women also like that, by the way. So it's not only one side, right? The other aspect is very important, is men also want support and encouragement. For example, men also like to be validated. And I know when my wife tells me, Ruxana, she says, Idris, you know what, I really like and appreciate the work you're doing in the community. Because in the end, the whole world can support what you are doing. It comes to nothing if your family doesn't support you.
Exactly.
And that's important. You should get, I know I say this, I say that it is enough for your Jannah if your wife and your children pray for you and wax lyrical about you and say to Allah, Ya Allah, forgive him. He was such a wonderful man. He was such an inspiration. We learned from him so many things. We learned about you, O Allah. We learned about your beloved Nabi. We learned to be generous. So I think that these are very, very important things, right?
Mashallah.
The other thing, this is a very critical point, it's also very sensitive. When women and men go through any kind of challenge, women withhold sex from the husband.
How is that?
What they do, they say, listen, I'm not feeling right to be physical with you. But a man is different. A man wants to be physical.
I see.
But his physicality is not merely physical. It's also for him a spiritual experience.
So
And that's
it comes from that physical.
Yeah, come from that. And I think it's important. Sometimes say, listen, I'm sorry, I'm too upset with you. So man likes that physical, he likes that particular intimacy. You understand? But the broader context is that as long as the issues at home are being addressed all the time, and you feel, in inverted commas, you feel almost cheap, what am I? I'm not an animal, that kind of thing. So what women need to understand that, I think that's very, very important. I mean, they would like, affection, they would like a touch and everything else, because I think what is very important is the fact that both parties, if they can do this, is not to withhold any kind of apology and forgiveness. To say, I'm sorry, my darling, please forgive me.
Mashallah.
That's important. Please forgive me. I'll give you an example. When my father went for a bypass, heart bypass, so I was there with my 5 other brothers, 6 of us, to see him in hospital. Then we left my mother and my father alone. And and when she finished off, I asked her, Mommy, what did Daddy tell you? And all men do the same thing. They say the same thing. He said to her, my mother's name is Rabia. He said, Rabia, please forgive me. Because that's a defining moment. I mean, you will not know whether he'll survive the operation or the anesthetic, isn't it? So I think that is important about forgiveness, right? The other part, 2 parts, the last 2 points there are more, but let's look at the last 2 points there, is about men also like clear and direct communication.
Just like women.
Yeah. You see, one of the things that women sometimes assume that a man knows what he has to do. But men prefer to be told.
Directly.
Directly. For example, darling, you know what? Can you just help me a bit in the kitchen? Say it to him, and he'll do it. Please just, just ask that. Otherwise, what happens, we find that there's a tendency, I don't want to generalize, that men will not enter the kitchen. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's important for that communication to take place. And in that way, what also happens is the fact that you get to understand each other's needs and whatnot.
Yes.
And the last point is men, they like their autonomy. And the independence. They like it, right? Because whilst they want this partnership, they also want to feel a sense of independence. They don't want to feel, so dependent on the other, so they do not become authentic, So I think the long and short of it all, I would advise everyone, and you need to observe, and you'll get to know what your husband wants, what your wife wants, and what their needs are, what makes them happy. And so therefore a question that needs to be asked is to ask each other, what will make you the happiest woman in the world?
Mashallah.
It's simple. What will make you the happiest woman in the world? And the other question to be asked, which I mentioned, I think, my previous trip, of all the things that I do for you, what do you love most? And of the things that I don't do, what would you like me to do?
MashaAllah. It is a matter of being straightforward to
Yeah.
your partner and discuss on how can both of you can improve the relationship. And just now you mentioned about, man wants the authority, the stability, right? Generally, are men okay with women being relying on them or being independent towards them?
Yeah. It depends again. You see.
Does it relate to the masculinity?
Yeah. It does. It does. You see, the whole thing is a lot depends on his own self-esteem.
Self-esteem.
Yeah, it depends on his own security. Like you find this, I found this, that if a man lacks confidence, he has low self-esteem, he would prefer to marry a woman that is assertive,
More confident.
more confident, because he knows that she can take charge. You
It means that they're okay with having women take charge
Yeah.
of in their
Yeah, you see,
relationship.
depending, they see it.
So different men,
Yeah,
of
different
course, they
people, yeah. So
differ-
therefore,
differ
I
what
say,
they
whilst we are saying all of these things, you need to understand your own unique experience, and that makes a huge difference.
need. MashaAllah. So all of the we are discussing just like the general
Yeah, correct,
things
yes.
that may give you an idea about what you can expect when you ask that question to your spouse.
I think it's very important. The whole thing is, if you want to be vulnerable, the best place is to be vulnerable with your wife or husband. That's the time. Because all of us are fragile people.
Yes.
We get hurt and everything else. And who is better than someone who knows you? Someone that you can trust completely.
Yes.
And you know that the trust will not be betrayed, because whatever has happened at home remains at home. The things, for example, often we have a squeaky clean image of ourselves in the public arena. But at home it is different. At home there is no public there, it's only your spouse and Allah is there.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yes.
So sometimes, especially in the beginning of the marriage, we tend to put on this kind of facade.
Yes.
Facade. Sometimes you can be condescending also, and you find that you are not free to be who you want to be.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yes,
So
exactly.
you stifle yourself, and as a result of it, then you are only projecting a particular image, and your spouse is responding to that image. But the spouse is not responding to who you really are. That means your needs will never be met, you see.
I see. Because of that, I think we had this discussion in the topic of communication, right? You cannot assume on things that may happen in the relationship. And going further into that, I still would like to talk about the man itself. I think it's important as we talk about the vulnerable. Of course, who is the best person to be vulnerable is your spouse, your wife. Here in the context of you're talking context of man. So for us women, how can we better support them when creating an environment that they feel comfortable being vulnerable, or at least how can we support them to make them to increase their self-esteem and be more confident in their life?
You see, one of the things is that you can have a conversation, but your conversation sometimes could be very mundane, ordinary. But it's also important that you discuss significant things. You talk about the innermost you, the authentic you, to talk about deep issues. Otherwise, you'll be just having a pleasant conversation. It's not penetrative. It does not get to know the real
The
you.
person.
And in that way, once you begin to have those conversations, it will make a huge difference. Suddenly you find that your spouse begins to feel so comfortable. Then he says, you know what, there's something I want to share with you.
MashaAllah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I want to share with you. Because why? You have inspired confidence in them.
MashaAllah.
That you are listening with your heart. You are listening in a very non-judgmental way.
And also, when you talk about man, there's this thing I mentioned just now about the masculinity. Have you ever heard of this? Is something that more prominent on the social media about this alpha male thing
Yeah.
where men have to be dominant. So in that, of course, when you talk about, you mentioned about the respect, how men want to be respected. Does it mean that men want women to serve them?
You see, from person to person, it is different. Those that want to project the alpha male image, it's really an image, but it is a conflicted image because they know they're not that. It's a facade, it's a veneer.
I see.
Yeah, it's a veneer. But when they are alone at home, I always tell people, you may walk around like as if you are a hero. When you are in bed all alone, when the lights are off, you are completely zero. The same men who do not cry but are crying because you know what, they're maintaining a particular image. And I know that in terms of my work, there are many people who have a particular persona on the outside, but at home they're very vulnerable. And in
Someone
fact, many of
different.
these men who have this alpha kind of image, at home they are completely subservient, and they are subservient and they've got their own particular issues to deal with,
Mashallah. All right. So we talk a lot about men. So now let's go back into women. So I did some Google search about, and then to take the general grasp of what women want. So here's some of the top 10 that I saw from the internet, online forums. They want someone who can share their vulnerability, to have meaningful conversations,
Correct.
and also romance.
Yes.
And I would like to talk more about the romance because in the previous episode we talked about the intimacy.
Yeah.
And me personally, as a woman myself, I really like that constant affection, or the constant how my husband keeps showing romance to me. However, this is just a personal observation from my other friends that not many men understand that their women needs that constant affection because they think, oh, I already give my wife everything, so why should I give her more? Why do I need to constantly give her affection when I already provide her everything that she wants? So what's your thought on that?
Yeah, it's a good point because it raises another particular point. What it raises is the fact, the romance does not necessarily have to lead to sex. And
Yes.
that's important. Sometimes a woman wants a man to kiss her, to hold her, all of
Even
those things.
simple compliment.
Yeah, you understand they
Yeah.
like that, right? And so this is important. So the whole thing is basically understanding each other's respective needs. You understand?
Yes.
Now sometimes you can compromise. You say, I know my husband, he likes to feel sexually fulfilled, so let me oblige. Right? But he must also reciprocate by being romantic with you,
Yes.
doing all those things to create an atmosphere where the sexual experience becomes becomes an integral part of it. Right? And you find that men are men. They want to have it all times of the day. Right? Anyway, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I think in that way, this also lends itself to excitement. And I think in the end, I think it's important to get that kind of fulfillment within your own marriage.
And also, before I got married, actually, someone told me about it. This person tried. She said that the very wonderful wedding tips, marriage tips in general, I would say. So this person told me that you know what? If you want to have a long-lasting marriage, it is we as a woman, you have to accept. You cannot challenge your husband no matter what they do, but the most important is that don't challenge their ego. So this is something that I was like quite, I think about that. I thought about that like quite deep. But then I think about, is it okay for women to just take the negative or the negative vibe or negative, obviously not threat, but I would say like the way how they've been treated by the husband. Is it okay with that? The
No,
men
no, you see.
just accept of it.
No, you see, the whole thing is this, that when you are married, there are no more egos. The marriage is an institution.
Need to leave it
Yeah.
behind.
Now, it'll be one-sided if the husband has such a massive ego, and you are just completely subservient to it. It's about how you deal with it. As long as you raise the issue not in a confrontational way. Once you do it in a confrontational way, then the ego will take place.
I see.
And it'll become problematic. And he said, oh, she's challenging me. And I'll show her who's in charge here. So that's an important point, And I mean, you don't tell your husband, you know what, I think you got a massive ego. You see, these are things, words matter. Words are very, very critical. I always say use purring words rather than snarling words.
Yes.
And I think it's your ability to negotiate, to persuade, how you go about doing these things will make a big difference.
I see. And also this shows that even in marriage, in relationship, there should be practice diplomacy. How can you
Tact and diplomacy, yes, fundamental.
I see. So unfortunately we are running out of time. So I would say as a closing for this episode, what is your final advice to men and women out there when understanding the needs and wants from their spouse?
I think firstly, do not take each other for granted. Do not assume, as you rightly said, you do not make assumptions. Try to get to know your partner, get to know what his unique needs are, and meet those needs. It reminds me, I'll end it off with a story. The husband and wife were fighting for such a long time. And she says that I decided, the woman, to ask my husband, darling, what will make you happy? He said he made such a simple request. After I start doing that, both of us are happy.
What is that?
I don't know what he asked, but what I'm saying is the idea about opening up the discussion and realizing that it is always under your control.
Again, at the end of the day, the bottom of it is that having a clear communication and work on the solution. And I still remember in your previous we said you talk about establishing six
A's.
The 6 A's, right? And whenever you come across with problems, and you have to go back to the 6 cores that you establish with your partner. And here, in the end of the day, it's all about having a clear communication with your partner. And with that being said, I would like to thank Brother Edris Khamissa for his insight on today's conversation, what men and women want. And we hope that today's discussion can give you motivation and give you an insight about how is it like generally on what men want and what women want. And if you like to share your thoughts or you want to share your story, you can leave it on the comment section of this posting on Facebook and also YouTube, or you can even leave a message at our WhatsApp contact at 01129004004. So Brother Edris, again, thank you for being with us. Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So to our dear listeners, don't forget to tune in to us next week for more conversation with Brother Edris. So stay tuned to Ikim FM. It's very